In this video, we will have a look at using shared preferences. So if you go to developer.android.com, you'll see this that says the shared preferences, or if you go and search for shared preferences, you'll see that shared preferences class provides a general framework that allows you to save and retrieve persistent key value pairs of primitive data types. You can use shared preferences to save any primitive data like booleans, floats, ints, longs, and strings, and this data will persist across user sessions even if your application is killed. So basically, preferences is just saving a specific preference of the user. This is not a normal database like an SQL database. We are just saving small stuff. So for instance, we're going to create an application in this video that will help the user to choose the background color of the app. And then that background color will stay the same for the app throughout. Well, even if he kills the application and restarts it again, that color will still remain the background color. Okay, so the first thing that you will need for this specific application, you need to go to this website at the top, and then it will take you to the site, and you can download colors.zip. And this is basically the only thing we're going to need for this application will be in this colors.zip. Okay, so inside of that colors.zip, you'll see these different colors. I'm only going to do a few of them, only 3 of them, but you can go for some exercise. You can go and do all 6 of them. So this is basically how the zip file looks like. Okay, so then when we start this application now, I just created a new application called Shared Pref Example. It's just a blank application, nothing to it. Just have the main activity there, and the resources just have the activity main. So before we start, let's quickly add those pictures. So in your res folder, you're going to right click and say new image asset, and then you're going to choose those images. So mine is on the desktop. There's colors, and I'm going to do cyan, lime, and orange. So just add cyan there. I'm going to call it the same name. And then maybe we can make it a square, so it just looks a bit better there. And then we're going to say next and finish. Then we're going to add another one again. And this time I'm going to add the lime. Also set it to square. And I'm going to add a third one. Which is going to be the orange one. And I'm going to call it orange. And square as well. Okay, so those are the pictures that we will need to use. And under your mipmap folder, you'll see cyan, lime, and orange now. You can do it for all of those pictures and use them in this application as you like. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do now before we start with adding the pictures or the image views, we need to go and create a new activity. So I'm going to right click on my first project folder there, not the one that says Android test. So in that one, I'm going to say new. I'm going to go to activity, and then I'm going to use a blank activity. No, sorry, empty activity. So for this activity, I'm going to call this activity settings. And that's fine, and then just say finish. Okay, so I've got the settings activity there, and I've got the layout file as well. So if we go to layout main now, the first one, so let's close down settings for now. Let's go to the main activity, and in the main activity at this stage, we just have the hello world there. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to just change this relative layout to a linear layout. And then add the orientation of vertical. I'm going to remove the text view and just add a simple button. So if you go back to design, you can see it's a linear layout now, and then I'm just going to add a button there. There's the button, and we're going to add some text for the button. So we're going to go to the strings XML, and we're just going to say settings. And that's the text for the button. So if I save now, go back to the button, double click the button, 3 dots, and we can go down to settings and say OK. So that's basically what we need for this specific activity. We're going to click on settings, and then it's going to take us to the settings activity. So for this activity, we want to also set the background color. So in order to set the background color, we need to go to the linear layout. So make sure you click on the linear layout itself and go down, and let's set the ID property there. And we're going to do something like backG for background. Okay, so that's the ID. You'll see later on in the application we're going to set the background color. So if we go to main activity now, let's just set up that button quickly. So we're going to say public void btn settings on click. And then whatever happens when we click the button will go to this one. So let's just connect it. Click on the button, go to the on-click property, and connect that method, btn settings on click. Okay, so the button is now connected to the method, and the only other thing that we need to connect to is this linear layout. That's called backG. So we connect to a linear layout like any other view. So it's going to be a linear layout. Let's just call it backG as well. And then we can set it up here. Backg equals linear layout. Find the view by its ID. And set up the ID. Okay, so for now we've connected to the linear layout. So we can go and set the background on the linear layout later on. And then we've got this method that will execute as soon as we click the settings button. Okay, so in order to start the second activity, we will say start activity. Then we're going to pass in new intent. First argument, the context, this. The second argument will be the class that we want to launch. So it's going to be settings.class. And then we will launch the settings activity. So if we open up the settings activity now, at this stage we basically have nothing. So if we go into this one again and make change the relative layout to a linear layout, and then add the Android orientation property and set it to vertical. Okay, so now we've got a basic layout, and now what we want to do is to go and add some information on the screen. So first off, we're going to start with just a heading there, and I'm going to change that heading to be bold. So you're going to go down to this text style property, set it to bold, and then we can set some text on that one. So I think we're going to call it settings as well. So you're just going to double click on it, and we're going to use settings as well. Okay, so the text will be settings, and then we're going to have 3 colors there that the user can choose from. So we're going to use linear layouts for that. So I'm going to add, after the text view, I'm going to add 1 linear layout. And let's just go to that linear layout and change it a bit. So we're going to change the height property to wrap the content. So it's a bit smaller. And then we can add an image view to that linear layout. And directly after the image view, we will add a text view again. Let's make a medium text view. Let's just click on the image view, go down to the source property. And the first one we're going to do there is the cyan picture. So it's going to be under map cyan. Click on OK, and there we've got the picture in the linear layout. Or for this medium text, let's change the layout gravity property to center vertical, and click on it again. Let's change the margin property on the left. Let's put a margin of 10 dp on the left. Click on it again. Let's go down to the text style property again and make it also bold. And then we've got something that looks like this. And then we're going to basically copy the same thing 3 times. So we're going to go to that linear layout. Let's just copy that linear layout. And I'm going to paste it 2 more times. And then you'll see we're going to have a problem with the IDs on the text view. So that one will be image view and text view 2. Let's make this image view 3 and text view 3 on the IDs. And this image view 4 and image view text view 4 as well. And then if we go to design, you'll see all 3 there. Okay, so let's just set some properties there on the first linear layout at the top, the layout margin property. Let's make that one 10 from the top just to move it down a bit. And maybe on these other linear layouts also a top margin of 10. For that one also a top margin of 10. Okay, so that's basically what we want. Let's go and change the source for this one. So if you click on that one, let's go down to source property. And let's just change it to lime. So, okay, and the third one, let's change that one to orange. Okay, so the picture looks something like this. Then for these 3 medium texts, we're going to set the strings XML for those 3 values. So it's going to be string, the first one will be cyan. Second one will be lime. And the third one will be orange. Okay, if we save, we can go back to activity settings, double click the first one, that one will be cyan. Second one will be lime. And the third one will be orange. Okay, so now we've set up the text for those 3 and in this case the image views. So what we want to do is the user must click one of these image views and then it should change the color to that specific color. Okay, so for these to work, we need to go and set their properties to on click or to clickable. So you're going to go down and search for the clickable property. Make sure it's clickable. And then we can go and set up a method now for them. So for these image views, let's quickly set some IDs for them. So for the ID of these image views, we're just going to say btn cyan, btn lime, and btn orange. So we've got IDs for those so that we know which one was clicked. Okay, so if we go down to, if we go to settings now, we can go and set up that method. So we're going to say public void, and I'm going to call this one color clicked. And what I basically want to do is I want to send all of these image views to this method. So I'm going to select all of those image views, go to the onClick property, and set all of them to the same method, color clicked. So when you click any one of those, it will go to the method color clicked. And then we can use a switch and pass in the V. Remember, V will now be any one of the views that activate this method. So it could be any one of these 3 that activated the method. So we're going to call the getID method on V so that we know which one of those 3 actually activated the method. And then we can go and do different cases there. So the first one would be case r.id. Let's go with cyan first. And then let's just put some brackets there. And inside of it, we will need to break. Second one, r.id.btn lime. And then the third one, r.id.btm orange. Okay, so those are the three different values that we can get when the user basically clicks on one of those image views. Then we're going to do something in here. So basically we've set up on the layout part, if the user clicks on any one of these buttons, it will go to color clicked, and then it will go to a specific case depending on which one was clicked. Okay, so in the next part now, what we need to do is to also go to activity settings so that we can change the background. We need to set that linear layout's ID as well. So that's the outer linear layout. So if you go down to its ID property, we're going to set that ID exactly the same thing so that we can use the same method in both of the activities. So it's going to be ID, also back G, so we can set the background on that specific linear layout. So let's go and set it up in our activity. So we're going to have a linear layout there at the top as well, and we're also going to call it back G. And then in the onCreate, let's set it up. So we're going to say back G equals linear layout, find the view by its ID, r.id.backG. Okay, so now we can start with our shared preferences part. So the first thing that we need for shared preference is the file, basically the file's name that we want to use. So it's going to be public final string, and then we can just call it file name for now, and then give your file a name. It must be a string value, so in this case let's just call it color selected. So that will be a preference that the user will make of a specific color that was selected. So I'm going to call the file name color selected. We're also going to need the shared preferences class or an instance of it, and we're going to call that one color data. Okay, so that's basically it for the declarations part. So we can go down now, and inside of this color clicked, we can go and set up what we want to do with that specific instance of get or shared preference, that shared preference instance there. So we're going to say color data equals, we're going to call a method get shared preferences that will go to a specific shared preference for this application, which we need to reference the file name. The first one is the file name, and the second one is the mode. So you can see there it needs the name of the file to open up, and then the mode. So the name of the file will then be color selected, and the mode, if you start typing mode, you'll see there's different modes. Most of them has been deprecated. So I'm just going to use mode private, which means that we can only use the shared preference in our application. It's not accessible to any other application. So just color data, setting it up there, shared preferences color data equals get shared preferences, opening up the file, getting the file with this file name, and setting the mode to private, which means only we can access it. Okay, so if we go then to the first one, BTN sign, if the guy clicks on it, let's create that shared preference then, or just to basically edit the shared preference. So you're going to say shared preferences.editor, and then call it something. I'm going to call it editor as well, equals color data.edit, which means that we're going to go to that file name now, to that specific file, that shared preference file, and we are basically going to edit it now. So what do you want to do after you calling edit? You want to do something, and then at the end you're going to say editor.commit, which will save it. So basically you start off with editing the file, and then you end off with saving it by calling the commit method. So what do we want to do in this case? So we want to go and say editor dot, and you'll see there's a put string method. So you're going to use the put string method, and then it's a key value pair. So you can see there's a key and then a value pair. So the key is the name of the data that you want to save. So I'm going to say back color. That's the name of the data. And the data that it will basically save, I'm going to just save the data of cyan. Okay, so basically I can add or call as many put strings as I want where the first one will be the key and the second one will be the value for that key. So when we save the data in the shared preference, it will be saved as, you can see this as the variable name, back color, and then the value for the variable will be sign. Okay, and then we save it. If it's lime, we're going to do basically the same thing. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it there. So it's going to be the same thing, but that variable or that key must be the value or have the value of lime. And then we're going to do the same for the orange one. That should just have the value of orange. So at this stage, if the user clicks one of these options, we will just go and save the color. So the other thing that we want to do is to go and set the background color of our specific application's background. So we're going to say back G. Remember that back G is now the linear layout that we created or connected to. And we're going to say dot set background color. And then we're going to say color dot pass color. And then you can put the hash code of the color in brackets. So we're going to say hash hash 00BCD4. So that's basically the sign color. And then we're going to do the same for the other two. So we're going to copy it, and then just after that one paste, and again after that one also paste, and then just change the value there. So for lime it will be CDD C39. Okay, and then if we go to orange will be FF 9800. So then we've changed the colors nicely. Okay, if we click on save then, just to save your application, what will happen basically at this stage, if the user clicks on any one of these, it will directly change the background color of the linear layout, which is basically the whole screen. So it's going to change the background color. And what we also did, it saves that background color for the application at this stage. Okay, so for the next part of this video, we need to go and see how can we retrieve what we just saved here in the shared preference. So we're going to call a method or create a method called public void set color, and that same one or that same method we're going to use as well in the other method, in the other activity, to also set the color to the background. So we're going to call the set color method, and where we're going to call it, basically, if you go to code and override methods, let's just quickly search for the onResume method, the one that says void, and then in the onResume we're going to call the set color method. So the set color method will then run in onResume, which will obviously run just after onCreate. We will basically call set color, but if we leave this activity and come back to it again, it will run onResume again. So we're just making sure that we set the color there as well. Okay, so instead of setting it to the onCreate, we run it in onResume. Okay, so what can we do in this method to get whatever the user then saved, or whatever preference we saved there as back color? So in order to retrieve that value again, we're going to go back to our color data, which is the shared preferences object. And we're going to say again, get shared preferences. Again, using the file name and then the mode, private again, exactly the same as we did there in order to save it. So this one just makes a connection to the file again. And remember, we need to make a new connection to the file because something in the file could have changed. Okay, so we made the connection to the file again, and then we're going to get the data that was returned. So let's just call data, data returned equals, we're going to go to color data, and now we're going to call the getString method. Remember there we said putString. So to retrieve it, we're going to say getString. And in this case, the name of the string that we want to return is called backColor. So the first argument there will be backColor. That's the data that we want to return. And it's going to return the value. So we indicate the key and it will return the value for us. The second argument will be a specific value that if this one does not exist, we're going to use the second argument. So in this case, we're just going to set a null value there, which means that if this back color does not exist, it's going to return a null value. If it does exist, it's going to return the specific value with it. So whatever is saved at that stage for the back color will then be returned into data returned. Okay, so we're going to test then if the data returned is equal to null, then we don't want to set the color at all. So we're going to do nothing. Else if the data returned dot equals, if it's cyan that was saved, we're going to do something. Else if the data returned equals orange, we're going to do something. And then obviously we only have 3 colors, so the last one we can just put a normal else there. It will either be null or cyan, orange, or lime then, which will be the else part. So that's basically just setting up the different values that we can get into back color. So just to recap again, making a connection to the file there, and then saving it, opening up the file to edit. We save a key value pair of back color and then the value cyan, and we save. So in order to retrieve it, we're going to say that same color data.get string, indicate the key, it will return the value. If that key does not exist, it's going to return a null. Okay, so basically what we want to do then, if we get or return that value, we want to set these colors. So the first color will be cyan. So I'm just going to copy this line. So there's cyan. It's going to set the background color to cyan. Then orange is this one. Setting it to orange. And then the last one will be lime. This one. Setting it to lime. Okay, so then we're basically done for this settings activity. Everything has been done. So now what we want to do is to go and do the same thing in the main activity. So I'm going to use the set color method. There's the set color method. I'm going to reuse it. So I'm going to copy this method, go back to main activity, and I'm going to call this set color method there as well. Okay, so now it's going to search for, we need the file name and color data. So as we did in settings at the top, we need the file name and the shared preference declaration there. So just copy those 2 lines, go back to the main activity, we need them at the top as well. And then if you added them, you can see everything is fine. And then also you can see that we did not call the set color method yet, so we're also going to go to code and override methods, and again search for the onResume method. And then in onResume, we will call that method again, set color. And then we're done. So this application then, what will basically happen, the user will click on one of these items, or first off we start in the main activity. He's going to click on settings, we go back to settings, or if he clicks on settings, it goes back to this specific activity, and then if he clicks on one of these items, it will change the background color, but also save the background color. So if the guy goes back to the activity main, the background will be changed. If you go back or goes back to activity settings, the background will still be the same. If you exit the application and you come back into the application, everything will also be the same, unless you go to settings again and changing it. Okay, so that's basically shared preferences. I'm going to run the app now just to make sure that everything is working correctly. Okay, so if we look at this application, we click on settings. We can use or choose any one of those. If I go back, you can see the color on that activity was also changed. If I click on lime, it changes on this and on the main activity. If I click on orange, it changes on this activity as well as the main activity. Okay, so if I go then to settings and you go down to your app section, you can go down to this specific application. It's called Shared Pref Example. If you click on storage, you can see there's a data part that you can clear. So that basically just deletes that shared preference file. And now if you go back, the color is gone. If you click on settings again, you can go and change the colors, and now the colors is changed again. You can also remove this application totally from memory, and then if you run it again, you'll see that basically that background has still been saved. So if you click on orange, go back, remove it from memory, and run it again, orange will still be there.